what we'll do now is work on the lab. I've gone through everything we need to work on the labs, and that way we'll still get out of here sometime before 8 o'clock. Okay, so let's look at what the assignments are for the lab. I'll close that down. And look at the assignment right here. All right, so this is the lab assignment for today. Yeah. Okay. Wait a second here. Is this it? Okay, yeah. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is write a point class similar to the one in the book on page 144. We'll do this in class, and we need to turn in. We've actually already done that. So we'll just pull up the example we've already created, and then continue on. So in this class, in this assignment, there's really only one function. I mean, there's really only one script to turn in. But we're going to do it in 3 separate steps. We're going to build on it. Okay. So the way that we're going to do it in 3 different steps is that we're going to have 3 different functions that do 3 different things, and then we're just going to call them, and that's going to be the final thing. So if you want to, you can just turn in a single assignment. So in this case, it would be 4_1 with your name at the beginning. So the first function that we're going to write is going to take the path to a text file as the only parameter. Then it's going to read the lines of that text file into a list or a tuple and returns the list or tuple. Okay? We're not going to modify it, so it really doesn't matter if it's a list or a tuple. So it's very similar to what we already have done so far. We're just going to put it into a function. So that instead of just calling that open command, we're going to take a string, pass it into a function, and then take that variable, read through everything in the file, return it back, and we actually don't want to return the very first value, and so we're going to get rid of it somehow, and then return the rest of them as lists or tuples. Okay, so that's a pretty simple function. The second one that we're going to do is to write a function that takes a list of cities, which, by the way, is going to be the output of the first function because we're going to read the file that we've been experimenting with. It takes a list of cities and returns a dictionary where the keys are the city names and the values are the locations as point objects. So it's going to take the output of number 1, you're going to feed it that list, and then as a result, you're going to get a dictionary. And then finally, you're going to take that dictionary and feed it into a third function that then writes all that information into a nice report. When I say nice report, I don't mean a super nice report. But you're going to just write into a new text file, a new CSV file, where it's going to have the name of the city and then the latitude and longitude. The name of the city, latitude and longitude. The name of the city, latitude and longitude, all the way down. Okay? The city followed by the coordinate boundary. So that's the process that we're going to go with. And so I think that we're probably going to do 1 in its entirety, and then 2 we're going to do almost all together, and then 3 I'm gonna let you work through that one. Okay. We did a pretty good example of that. Just the last thing that we did today, the writing the text file part. That was this now. All right, just because I've got too many windows open, I'm going to close all my Python windows and reopen my Python window here. Okay, instead of opening up, I'm going to go to my recent files and just open up the, I think it was example 1. Yeah, I'm going to open up just example 1. So this is the file that created the class. And perhaps if we were being really slick, we could have a separate module that had the point class defined inside of it. But we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to have our point class up here, and then we'll have our 3 functions that we're going to create. And our 3 functions are going to do what we need them to do. So it might be helpful to, I'm going to delete this right here because I don't need it. It might be helpful to actually create a comment for everything that we need it to do. Yeah, go ahead. Oh yeah, that's right. Thanks. All right, good point. So we're dragging the window a little bit so you can see it down there on the coast better. So I'm going to write comments about what I need each one of these to do. In fact, what I can do is go back over here and remember these 3 things here. So that's a lot of text, but I'm going to separate these out. I don't like how slow it goes. Okay. Okay, write a function that takes the path to a text file and reads the lines of that text file into a list or 2. I'm just going to leave it there. And then returns, maybe I shouldn't have, too much text. So the first one writes a text file. The inputs are going to be, the input is going to be a path and, or sorry, read the text file. Read the text file. The input's going to be a path. The output is a list of each line in file. Okay. So that's number 1. Number 2 is going to take a list of cities and return, what do we say it's going to return? Oh yeah, a dictionary with, what are the keys going to be? Keys, city names, and the values. I'll hit enter here. The values are, I don't know what that means. It's incoming call. Jason Grover's calling me. I just turned the volume down on my computer. I think that a long time ago I set up my Google to, like, if I don't answer my phone, which I have turned down, to roll over to my Google Voice. Forgot about that. I thought it would go to voicemail first. It takes a list of cities and returns a dictionary with keys, the city names, and values are a point object. Okay. And then finally, the last one is going to basically write a report of that info in the dictionary to a file. So we're going to read a file. We're going to use that function that finds the locations of cities to find the location of the cities, store them, and then write a report of that info into a dictionary or file, of that dictionary into a file. All right, so let's start out with the first one. How do we create a function? What's the keyword to create a function? No, but to create a function, what's the word that we need to do to create a function? To create our own function. The syntax. DEF, yep, it stands for define, okay? So this is our function. This is what our function is going to do. Can somebody suggest a good name for a function that does this? Doesn't really matter. I just want you guys to come up with a good name. What's that?
My brain is currently melting.
Okay.
So,
What's that? The text file is a bunch of cities, yeah. Okay, just cities. That's acceptable. So it's going to basically get the cities. So we'll just call it cities. What is our function need according to the assignment?
need a path to a text file.
Yes, it needs a path to a text file. What kind of variable are we going to store that value in? A path. It's going to be a string. It doesn't really matter because Python doesn't care initially. Okay, but the way we can say this is we can just, is that an okay name for a variable? I call it a path. All right. So we're going to call our variable path. Okay, so we need this function to take path and open up a text file at that path, and then read the information from there. So what's the syntax for opening up a new file? We did this today.
Have the path equals open, and then go to wherever it is.
Okay. So now what is F in this case? Like, is it important that we call it F? I'm just asking this. What's that? No, F is the name of what? It's a variable, just like any other variables we've worked with. So we could have said file equals. F seems like an appropriate, it's in a lot of the examples. So F equals open, and then what's the next part of the syntax?
R.
But what is R, by the way? I mean, what is all that stuff in there?
It tells you where to read it from.
It tells you where to read it from.
Yeah.
Now, should I type that all in? What's the point of this path variable up here? Isn't that the same thing as all that stuff? Right. Later on, we're going to call this function into the actual path, right? Yeah. Okay. Now, what's the rest of the syntax here? What do we do?
You can write it somewhere after that.
Right. We need to write it to somewhere where we need to tell it that we're writing it. So this, I didn't really define this, but this is called the file mode. We want to open it for reading. We don't want to open it for writing. Okay. All right. So after this line executes, what have we done? Anybody want to say? So what is F at this point? Everybody remember what F was? What's that? Making sure that's still working. Good. What is F at this point? No, that's a good guess. It's the file we're trying to read, right? And it's a, would you say it's a variable? It's a variable that contains a value, and that value is the file that we're trying to read. And that that file that we're trying to read in Python, we can refer to it as it's an object. It's an instance of a file class. Okay, it's an object. Remember when we printed it before? It had the open greater than less than. Okay, so if it has the squiggly brackets, it's a dictionary. If it has the straight brackets, it's a list. If it has parentheses around it, it's a tuple. If it has quotes around it, it's a string. These are all different ways Python denotes things. If it has the little brackets and it has a bunch of gobbledygook, it's what I mean by that is it actually telling you the address of where it is in memory. But if it has a greater than less than sign, that's the way Python denotes that it's an object. So F is an object, and it's an instance of class file at this point. All right. Now, what do we want to do next? Not the syntax. What do we actually want to do with our file? Well, we're gonna call later on. You're exactly right. Like later on down here somewhere, we're gonna call it and we're gonna say cities. Oops. Make this smaller. We're gonna do something like this where we say cities, and we're gonna feed it the name of the path. You know, full C:/ my path. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. So we're going to get to that. But inside of our function, what's the next thing that we need to do after we open it up? Because ultimately, what do we need? What's this function going to return? Yeah, we're going to do something to the contents. What do we need to return? We're going to return a list or a tuple. The instruction said you could return a list or a tuple. Okay, so we're going to return some list, and it's going to be a list of cities. So we need to get there. Right now, we don't have our list of cities. We need to create our list of cities. All right, now, I said that there were a few different ways to read every line in a text file. So what's a good way to do that, to read every line in a text file? If we could f dot read line, that will work. This will read the lines line by line. So we could read all the lines in the file. What if we don't know how many lines there are? Was there a better way that I went over to do that? Using a loop? How do we loop through every line in the file? What are the two types of loops that we talked about in this class? For loops and while, right? For loops and while loops. Okay, so is a for loop or a while loop in this case? Right, for, and the way that we read this is for, it can really be anything. We could just say for, we could stick with our one, what do you call these? One character variables for L and F, okay? For L meaning line in F in the file. So if I just printed L, it would just print line by line, okay? But I don't want to print them. I want to put them into a list. So how would I put each line, individual line, into a list? Did we talk about? We did talk about putting things into lists. First of all, do I have a list yet to put anything into? No. Okay. How do I create a new list? It's a syntax for creating a new list. I want to make list of cities into a list, and it's going to be empty.
Is that what you reference, the file?
It's going to be down here, right? Okay. Here, I'm just going to create an empty list. That's what I want you to do. A fresh list. And I see you doing this with your hands.
Parentheses there? Just blank parentheses?
Now, lists aren't parentheses. They're what? Not parentheses, brackets, yes. So this creates a brand new list, okay? Now, you actually can't create a tuple, an empty tuple, and add things to it. It's not possible because tuples are not mutable, okay? So, although there is a way to do this using tuples, I think it's more straightforward to use a list. And the way I would do it using a tuple is to read the entire file and then separate it out by the new line characters. But that would get a little confusing because I also want to remove the first one after I'm done because it contains, stupid information. Okay, the very first one is just the header information. I want to get rid of it. And so since I want to manipulate these things, this list, I think it's best to do it this way where we do it as a list. Okay. But however, the assignment says you can do it either way. So if you want to do it the other way, that'd be great. All right. So for L and F, does anybody remember the key word for adding things to a list? So I could say list of cities, and how do I say dot, because this is an object. It's an object of type list, and there are a few things that I can do to my list of cities. So I can say list of cities dot, what? Right? That's a good guess. What did you say? I think you actually said, no, not name. What did you say? Right? Yeah, that's a good guess. Oh, but it's not that. All right. No. So yeah, I think Nicole, this was actually was this last week? Maybe not the last time we met. Anyway, you might not have been here. But does this look familiar to anybody? Append is the name of the function. It's in the book. Okay. So, I think that it's not that you have to have all these things just coming to your head instantly, but if they're not, you might want to spend a little bit of time methodically going through either my lecture or the book, so to figure these things out, because this is important. Adding things to lists is something that happens all the time, and it'll continue even when we're doing GIS stuff. It'll keep happening. So we want to append. Append is the name of the function, and we're going to add. What are we going to add to the list? Each time through this, we're going to get a new line. And what do we want to add? At this point, this is only going to return a list of all the city names. What variable at this point is holding the city name? And by city name, I mean the whole thing, the city and the state. What's that? Path holds the location where it is on disk. All right, here. Let's get the actual path here so we can start running this, because maybe this will make it a little bit easier. So we're going to use this city small again. And so I'm going to call this, and I'm going to all right, now I'm going to run this guy and see. I did this before. So I'm running this, and this is the only print line right here. I'm printing L, which is the line. So I'm printing this city, this city, this city, and this city. Okay, I'm printing each one. So L holds that value. So what I want to do is store L in my list of cities. So this is how I would do that. Okay. So what's happening for L in F is that each time through, L is the next line in the table. The first line, the second line, the third line, the fourth line, and then I'm storing those. I'm reading that in and storing them in the list of cities. We're going to run this now. Oh, this time it's not going to do anything because I'm not printing anything. Okay. Now I'm going to print. Okay. How would I get this down here? How would I get this to print the list of cities down here? What could I do? Right, but list of cities only exists inside of this function. It doesn't exist outside of that function. Well, it gets returned out here. So cities creates a list, but we won't get it unless we set it equal to something. So we have to say something like, you know, our cities. See what I'm saying? So now our cities will contain this. So this will run. It'll take its list of cities and it'll come out of here and store it into there. And we can print our cities. Am I spelling cities right? No, probably not. What's that? Our cities. All right. So now if I run this, I will get, see it's the list, and I have a bunch of city names. So here's one city, here's two cities, here's three cities, here's four cities. Okay, there's a couple problems though. Can anybody see some problems with this list? Yeah, the first one is nonsense because it's the header. Any other examples of problems? Got all these new line characters. All right, so because we didn't practice this much, I'm going to, I don't want to split it because I want the whole city name because I'm just going to feed that into that function. Right, so, but I am going to do, it was called strip. So strip will remove the carriage returns. See now if I run this again, it removed all the carriage returns. How do I take the first item of a list and just discard it? Okay, so I could just say something like that. I'm slicing it. So now I'm only showing that. Okay, we did talk about slicing before. So what does the slice mean? It means from one all the way through to the end. Kind of looks like a little bit like it could be a emoji right there that has some weird smile. Anyway, that would be like a normal one. Like that. That doesn't mean anything. Okay, so now we're printing just those. Okay, we could, another way to do this is so that if we were always sure that the list of cities had a header, we could take this and put it right here. So that actually returned the stripped out value all the time. See what I'm saying? So now if we put it right here, we run it again, we get the same result. But every time we use cities, we don't have to worry about that header anymore. See how I modified that? So that might be a better way to handle it. You could even, like, you could make this even more general. Sorry, the default should be true. All right. So what did I change and why did I change it and what does it do? Exactly. And we didn't do this until today, but what does doing this do inside of a function definition?
See if there is a header.
That's a good guess. It doesn't check. This assigns a default value, so I don't actually have to specify. When I call the function, I don't have to say true or false here. I only have to say it if it's false. If I put a false here, when I run this, it will not ignore the header. But when I just delete it, it will assume that there is a header and not put it in there. See how the two different texts there? So this has a bunch of things that we've talked about, but we haven't always implemented them. Okay, so now we have a parameter that's optional. Okay, you have to create a default value for it to be optional. We've also have multiple return statements that that will only be executed if certain things happen. Okay. And then we're getting the results. So is this done, the first one here? Is there anything else that you think that this needs to do that it doesn't do? Not yet, but that's not the assignment for the first function was that it takes a file name and returns a list of cities. Is yours not working?
For some reason that strip right there, it's not like it.
You have the That's a 1, it looks like. It needs to be an L. Sorry.
Oh, that would be it.
L's and 1s look too quick. I should have actually written line. Or try to run that again. So this path doesn't exist.
This hers, that would be one. Let's try it again.
Header is not defined. So yeah, you need here. See where it says path comma header equals true. You need to have that.
Oh, okay.
I like that.
Really
It sounded familiar. Didn't have to remember.
alien, also. Something went wrong with the first try again. Wow, that's gorgeous.
Go up there. That looks crazy.
Awesome.
My guess is that your file got corrupted somehow. So you just need to re-download that city's, because this is printing out the contents of that file, which now contains a bunch of stuff. Yes. So the file that you're accessing is.
Yep, that's exactly what happened. That whole file is good.
Yeah, so just put the right stuff in there and it'll work. Okay. So, yeah. All right, so this function does what we want it to do. It takes, it basically gets our list of cities from a text file. All right, now this next function is going to take a list of cities and return a dictionary with the keys being the city names. The city names are the input list is going to be a bunch of city names. And the values are a point object. All right, this will probably be the one that requires the most typing. The longest function, I guess, is the way I should say that. All right, so what should we call this function? It's going to take our cities list and return a dictionary of city locations. Anybody got a good name for that function? Still didn't work for you?
Yeah, for now, it's still getting forward on my
Well, you can go ahead and type this one up, and then since it's dependent on it, we'll do it. Okay, so what's the name of this function going to be? Remember, it's going to take a list of cities and return the the points. Yeah. Okay. Your hair is not as crazy though.
Not yet.
All right, so yeah, what'd you say? Return cities. Okay, I'm gonna call it return cities. And what does this function need? What's it gonna require? What's the input? Sorry. What's the input to this function? What's that? You mean this L? Well, this L doesn't exist anymore after this loop's gone. There's no more L. Yeah, it's going to take a list of cities. It's not going to be this list of cities. Well, it kind of will be that list of cities, but we're going to feed it our out cities down here. It doesn't matter. It's just a variable. We're going to call it list of cities. Okay, just because it is a list of cities. But remember, this list of cities is not this list of cities. It's only inside of this function. Okay? So it's going to take a list of cities, and what's it going to return eventually? Yeah, and it's going to be a dictionary of cities. So maybe I'll just call it dict of cities. All right. Oh, I don't need that. So it's going to return our dictionary of cities. So we need to build our dictionary of cities. Did we actually cover how to make an empty dictionary? Even if we didn't, I'll bet you can guess. How do we make an empty dictionary, you suppose? This is how we make an empty list. How do you think we're making extra? Yeah, squigglies. Okay, so that's an empty dictionary. So our empty dictionary is going to be fed in city names. Okay, so how do we go through every item in our list of cities.
Separate it out with spaces between.
How do we loop through every item in our list of cities? That's what we did up here. We read every line in a file, but now we want to read. Well, I use the word read, but now we want to go through each element in our list of cities. How do we go through each element in a list, in a loop? The looping seems to be our weakest concept as a class at this point. All right. How do we loop through? All sequences are the same. If we want to loop through every element of a sequence using a loop, how do we do it? What's that? Christian, you say something?
You said that you wanted to loop through everything?
I want to loop through every element in this list of cities. Somebody suggest a line of code to help me start my loop. 4, then what? Every element inside of list of cities. List of cities is a list of cities, and I want to go through every single one in a loop. Because okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it printed out these elements in that list. If these were cities, you know, if I change these all to cities, I could say 4 element in my list. Here, what I want to do is not that much different. I've got a list of cities. We could do element. Okay. For element in list of cities. What's that? Well, list of cities is a list. What is the item for an element? Now it might be helpful if we called this something besides element, like city, right? Because element is a general term. We're just giving this a more helpful name because these elements actually represent cities. So we're saying for city in list of cities. And each time through, we're printing a new city. Okay. This is probably the next thing that we're going to do is probably the most complex thing that we're going to do in any of this is we're going to take the city, and we're going to pass it into that function that tells us the latitude and longitude of a city. So we need to go get that function. Where did I put that? So that's called location.py. I'm just going to copy and paste the whole thing. Control C and put it up at the top. So now we've got this function that it's called get address location. And down here, we're going to say print city. Okay, let's leave that in there just for fun. Okay, so it'll show up each time. But we're also going to get the whoa, didn't mean to copy all that. We're also going to get the address location of that city. Get that the location of that city. So we've got a function, okay? It's going to get that address location of the cities. So how do we feed that there? So something like this. We have to assign that out to a new variable. What are we going to call it? We're going to call that. It's going to be the location of that city. What should we call the variable? What's that? Did you say location? It's not a bad idea. I'm going to modify this slightly. We'll leave that in there, but I'll say city, comma, location. We're gonna run it up to this point. Now we actually have to call this function, right? So we've got our cities here. Let's get rid of this. We've got our cities. How do we call return cities? We just type it, right? And what is our list of cities that we're going to feed it? What cities are going to go into the return cities function? The ones from our list. What variable currently holds that? Right here at this point in the code.
City.
List of cities held it here, but it returned it out and stored it our cities. So our cities now contains the list of cities that we want to go into the return cities. So we're going to do that. Okay. Now, right now, the dictionary of cities is empty. So we're not going to print that, but we're going to print inside here. We're going to print the city, comma, location, and I'll run it to see that. Okay. All right. That's a bunch of gobbledygook. It's not really gobbledygook. It's actually the city, which is right here, and the location, which is right here. Well, why did all this stuff print? Oh, remember, I accidentally left that in there when I copied. Let me run it again. I left all that. So this is what I wanted to see. See, I left. Let's see this line right here. I printed that for you earlier. I accidentally left that in there. I put that print statement in there. I'm taking it back out because I don't want to see all that. What's printing on this line right here is just the city name and the location. The city name and the location. City name and location. I'm going to run this one more time just to show you that. Okay. All right. Then I'll leave this open. All right. So it's printing the city name and the location for each file. So it's actually doing this two separate functions. The first function is taking a file name and returning a list of the cities in that file. The second function is taking the list of cities and returning, well, so right now it's not returning anything, but our goal is to have it return the point location of each of those. All right, so. Okay, go back here and make sure. Just remember our cities. Did you ever get that working?
Go back to what I did. I actually copied and pasted it directly. Every time I downloaded it downloaded all this.
Yeah. Okay. So right here.
So you can see the smaller.
Return cities doesn't equal our cities. Return cities is the name of the
Oh,
function.
it's,
You're going to feed it RC. That's where I'm at.
For some reason,
That's like
returned, here.
Okay, so what that's telling you is that for your first city, that it didn't return anything. So go up to here.
Could it be because the first city is the canonical name, not an actual
Is this
city?
the stuff you print out?
Yeah.
That works kind of, but since you deleted the header,
Yeah.
you should go right here, say comma, space, false. We can't go on. Just, that's our, now you get all four, so you can show. Because we told you you had a header and you deleted it. There you go. All right, that's fine. But it's still recognizing the last. Okay. Okay, so on this function that we're displaying up, that's right here, our function is right now printing the city, comma, the location. And what we want is not the city location. What we want to actually store in the dictionary is we want the dictionary key to be the city. So how would we store something? Remember how we did that? Dictionary of cities. How do we make a new key? Oh, yeah, we put the name of the key. But in this case, what is the name of the key at this point? Does that make sense? When I just type dictionary of cities, bracket city. City is going to be a variable that's going to be the name of a city. Does that make sense? Okay. Now the value is going to be a point. So we have to do something like this. Point, we're going to create a new point. And location, does anybody know what the data type for location is? It's latitude, longitude. So look at these. Which one's we can tell. You know where Anchorage is? So plus we can also tell, how can we tell that which one's latitude and which one's longitude? Even if we didn't know, just by looking at that particular number. Is there any way 149 could be a latitude? Right? Why? Why can't 149 be a latitude? Right. So 90 and negative 90 are the upper and lower limits for latitude. What are the upper and lower limits for longitude? 180 positive or negative. And this is negative 149. And where would that be on the globe if you can imagine the globe? Where's negative 149? It's pretty far west of the prime meridian, as far as you can go almost. It's 30 degrees off as far as you can go. So if you think about the location of Anchorage, that's Anchorage, Alaska, it is pretty close to that. I mean, the Aleutians actually stick out into the Eastern Hemisphere. They're, the international dateline, they're nice. They let us include the Aleutians in our time zones, but that doesn't work for latitude and longitude. Latitude and longitude, it just keeps, so some of the Aleutians are in positive 100 and, yeah, territory. Maybe even, they still got pretty far. They might go all the way out into positive, 150, 160. I'm not sure exactly. So in any case, yes, we can tell that 149 is longitude. Now, is that, from my back earlier in the lecture, is 149, is that, is longitude X or Y? Longitude. It's hard for me. I have to think about it.
No, you gotta own that, but.
So longitude is this way.
Right,
I'm not saying that some people don't get it easy,
right.
but longitude is this way, and so it is X. It's the equivalent of X. And latitude is Y. Okay? So this is actually X, so that's fine. X is first, Y is second. And so these are already in the right order for us to throw them in to our point. Okay? All right. So how do we put them into the point? So it's going to be location. How do we reference? Because this is, remember, it's a tuple. We can tell it's a tuple. We can tell. How do I know this is a tuple? The parentheses. Okay. If it was this, it would be a list if they were brackets, but it's a tuple. So how do I tell it that I want the first element in the tuple to go here? That's all I meant. How do I tell it that I want the first element in the tuple to go into be the X coordinate in the point? Remember when I create a new point, I need to have the X and the Y value. So how do I get the first element of the tuple?
X, right?
No, in fact, that's the way it works with an object. But remember, with tuples, they're just referenced by what? What do I use to reference elements in a tuple? And a list is the exact same. What do I use to?
0, 1, 2,
Right. So what's the first element?
0.
0. So 0, comma, location 1. So what this is doing is saying, okay, I'm going to create a new point, and I'm feeding it location 0, which is the X coordinate, and location 1, which is the Y coordinate. I'm feeding those two. So in my list of cities, my dictionary of cities, sorry, I'm creating a new key, and I'm setting the value for that key equal to this newly created point. At this point, I'm gonna remove the print statement, and instead of that print statement, I'm gonna say, our cities dict equals. I used to just write DIC, and then eventually too many people started snickering, so I put a T there. So our city's dict is going to be equal to the output of this function, and then we'll print that. Print our city's dict. So now, what is our city's dict going to be?
Dictionary.
It's a dictionary. What's a dictionary going to contain? What are the keys going to be? The city names from the file, and what are the values going to be in that dictionary? They are going to be the latitude and longitude, but more specifically, the latitude and longitude stored as what? Points, our point class. They're going to be instances of our point class. So when we actually print this, you'll see that it'll have that, those brackets and the address of that that location rather than, to see what I'm saying. So here's our dictionary, the squiggles. Move this over a little bit. So we've got the squiggle, and this is a key, and the value is this point object, and that's where it's stored in memory. And then this is the key, and then this is the point. Okay. So we can't really see the XY locations, but they're there. If we wanted to see them, we'd have to print them out by saying something like dot X and dot Y each time through. And that's what you're actually going to have to do in the last one. All right, so these are our keys. These are our values. Okay. Close this up. All right, so our last function is basically going to take the this dictionary. So we write something like this: define, and the name of this function is going to be called location report. Okay, location report, and it's going to take what is the input that it needs. Yes, it's going to take our city's dictionary, and it's going to basically, I'm going to put loop, I have the hashtag there, loop through each key in the dictionary, write to file, name of city, comma, lat, comma, longitude. And I do want it in that order, the latitude and the longitude. And you should put a header in there. So go back and I'll upload from today. If you go open up example number 3. Example number 3 does this with buildings and stories, but now you're going to do the same thing, but you're going to put this in this function. It's going to write it to a file location. Sorry, it's going to open up a file for writing. It's going to write the header, and then it's going to do a for statement like this, except for, I mean, you could make it say for building and buildings, but it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense. Yours is going to say something like, for cities in our cities dict. We can change this to just cities dict inside here, or dictionary of cities maybe. So yours is going to say 4 cities in dict of cities, and then your write statement is going to look something like where it says city, which will be the name of the key, comma, the latitude. This is probably the most complex part of this one. Okay, how would we reference that? If we're looking through the loop, we're going to have to say city, which is the key name. But we don't need the key name. We need an element from the dictionary. So how do we get that? In a general sense.
That's the first item.
So it's going to be something like this. That's going to get the value out, right? This inside the loop, this line of code inside the loop, where the loop says something like for city in dict of cities, if this was inside that loop, this would return the value. And what's the value in this case? It's the point. So how do I get the latitude and longitude? How do I get the latitude? This is the tricky part. It's an object, so I need to use what? I need to use some dot notation. So how do I get the latitude and longitude using dot notation? Because it's an object and it has these values, X and Y. loop through each key in the dictionary. You're probably also going to have to look at this then. You're going to have to look at, here's our example one, or sorry, no. Yeah, this is our example one, right? Remember when we went, is this one I'm currently working on? Yeah. Did I overwrite example one? Oh, well. Yeah, this is example one. I'm going to save this as Raber George 4_1. Okay. I'm gonna write a little note here. If I have an object called a point, I say point.x to get the x coordinate, and I say point.y to get the y coordinate. So right here in my dictionary of cities, if I got the city and then I said .x, I'm getting the x coordinate of that city, or .y, I'm getting the y coordinate of that city. All right, so anyway, I mean, it's almost 8 o'clock. So what I want to do is leave this right where it is, and next week I am going to ask. The very first thing I'm going to ask is if anybody has solved how to get this to work. Okay, so I want you all to spend some time thinking about what's going on. I've kind of stubbed out some code. You got to loop through each key in the dictionary. So how do I do that? Think about how you do that. Try to implement that first. Then you got to write to the file name of a city, latitude and longitude. Think about how you get just the city when you're inside the loop. How do you get just the latitude? How do you get just the longitude? Maybe you only figure out how to get the city. Maybe you figure out all three, okay? But try to figure that out. And then this is basically some starting code on how to get the latitude and the longitude. But you all aren't going to get how to do this with me just talking and filling in the answers all the time, even if I ask you questions. Okay. So spend some time looking back through examples, looking through the book, and all you're doing is looping through each key in the dictionary. That's the secret. When you figure out how that's working, this will make a lot more sense. And if you need to practice creating your own little fake dictionaries and looping through them first, do that. Okay? Start with a brand new, fresh interpreter, create a dictionary using the simple syntax, and then just loop through every item in that dictionary first. Okay? Then realize that up to this point, you've created a dictionary, and that this variable contains that dictionary that you've created, and you're just going to loop through that same dictionary again, okay? And do some stuff to it. All right, and the stuff you're going to do to it is very similar to the stuff I did to it here, so you've got some example for that. All right? Okay. Nobody, nobody needs to spend every waking moment from now until then, but one computer science class that I took often involved leaving a question like this, and the next week's, maybe we'll ask somebody to demonstrate a solution they came up with. If not, then I'm just going to be up here again, going through line by line. But let's see if we can get something in terms of initiative from one of you four. There's only 4 people left in this class. to come up with at least a partial solution to what needs to go on here, okay? So the first step is to loop through each key in the dictionary. So if you can't figure that out, start out with creating your own dictionary and loop through the items. Then try to get the values, then try to manipulate the values. All right, I think all that stayed on video, so we should be all set. And I'm going to stop the broadcast at this point unless there's any really good questions right now. I'm going to go ahead and